Hello, friends and RC family. My name's Alec from High Noon Hobby, and if you're new to the channel, I very much appreciate you checking it out. I hope that you'll stick around, watch a video or two with me, see if it's worth your while. I personally think it is, but I'm probably biased. If you aren't new to the channel, I very much appreciate you checking it back out, checking back in for yet another Sunday upload. You're very special to me. You got a special place in my heart. This week's video, we're going to be taking a look at two different runs between two different low center of gravity flat rail chassis builds. So let's just jump right into it. All right, here we are back on the 10-gate course. I believe that this is a new 10-gate course for the channel. I don't think that you guys have seen this one yet, and it's not particularly difficult. This course isn't quite as difficult as some of the other courses you've seen, and that will become apparent when you see some of the lower times that we see the drivers achieve through this course. But that isn't to say that there aren't still some technical lines to be had, and it's still interesting enough, I think, to merit publishing up here so that we can all enjoy. As I mentioned at the start of this video, this is going to be a sort of line comparison, although really, as I've mentioned in many of my comparative videos, that it's not so much of a comparison because there are so many different variables. It's more of a way for you to get a sense of how two different trucks performed in similar scenarios, but certainly not the same scenarios. Obviously, we've got different drivers, and these trucks are set up so differently that it's difficult to get a good comparison on a single component within the truck. But that being said, this truck here, and this is a very difficult line, so I'm going to stop for just a second and say that that is something that got a lot of people, that gate right there. It's unfortunate he ended up just bellying out there, and it forced him down into the cone. So definitely a stroke of unluckiness there. Which is quite unfortunate for Scumbag RC, or Luke from Select Crawlers, who is running Black Betty, as we've come to affectionately name her. This truck here is a low-range, low center of gravity chassis. This chassis is not carbon fiber, as we see many of the low-range chassis not low range, the low center of gravity chassis on the market today. This is a metal chassis, I want to say a milled chassis, but essentially it is a little bit heavier than what you would come to find in some of the carbon fiber pressed options out on the market today. That isn't to say that this isn't a very, very high performing low center of gravity chassis. This chassis is pretty cool. There are a lot of different kind of features and options with this chassis that I haven't seen in other from other manufacturers. One of the things that I thought was particularly cool was the adjustable servo mount for this chassis, which uses kind of a sliding screw design. Basically, it uses a slot drilled out instead of just a single hole for the servo, which allows you to mount it in numerous positions. And this low center of gravity chassis also has the numerous different options for shock mounting, as we've all come to expect on these kind of competition-ready chassis. One thing to note with these styles of chassis, if you are running Sorca rules, I believe that there is something about extended shock towers having to be welded to the frame. So if you get something like this low-range, low center of gravity chassis, something that you could do to conform to those rules technically would be to just grind off or cut off the shock towers, the shock mounting towers, and just weld them back on. If you were to do that, technically you would be conformant with those Sorca rules. This is a little bit of an unfortunate misstep here by Luke. He took the bonus, but then I guess maybe this is more of a personal opinion. I kind of think, and I don't know what I was doing there with the camera, but kind of think that he should have taken this gate first and then gone over to the bonus gate, which we will see Dustin do in the next run, just because of the distance that you then have to cover from the gate that Luke just hit and this final gate here. Whereas if he were to hit that gate first and then go over to the bonus and then come back from the bonus over here, I think he would have cut off just a little bit of travel time. Nonetheless, though, even with that gate hit, we end with a -20 at 413.25. So that is absolutely a respectable run, and we'll come to see just how respectable it is in the next one and just how neck and neck these two chassis are. So here we are with D's Company, or Dustin, from the Slut Crawlers group, and we're going to be getting a few different angles on this run than I got on the last one, just to kind of give you guys some different perspectives. This crack here is fairly tough, but generally speaking, trucks make it through here without too much trouble at all. I was able to one-shot that myself. I think that a variety of different widths can work their way in there fairly easily. Speaking of kind of the technical specs of this truck, this is what probably a lot of you are familiar with as one of the biggest, if not the biggest, name brand in the low center of gravity chassis game right now in the comp crawling scene. This is a G-Speed low center of gravity pressed carbon fiber chassis. This also has a lot of cool features, and the support from the G-Speed team is absolutely amazing. I know that Gabe, I think he's the owner of G-Speed, along with a bunch of the guys that he has been working with, have really put the time in to put kits together that make this truck just run amazingly. So if you want to check out the G-Speed chassis website, I'll have a link for that down below, as well as a link to the Low Range RC website as well, just in case you're interested in either of these chassis. Both are fantastic options if you're looking to put together a comp crawler. In terms of pricing, I'm not 100% certain what the comparison is between these two. I know that the last time I checked, the Low Range RC website was out of the low range chassis. I think that the G-Speed chassis for just the carbon rails are around $70, and for an entire kit, you're probably getting close to, if not over, $200 to get all of the different kind of bits and bobs that you'll need to put a G-Speed kit together. Nice performance over that edge, and we're just going to straight shot it down. Looks like he's probably going to have to throttle out of that, and he did a very nice job of throttle control there. Coming back using this same line that Luke did, kind of a little sneaky way to get up here, although it seems as though Dustin might be having slightly more trouble getting some traction on there. I wonder if there's a slight difference in the traction being provided by these two sets of tires. I am not sure what two sets of tires are on these two trucks, and I don't want to take any guesses and get it wrong, so I will leave that up to someone with a better eye. Here, unfortunately, the camera decided to be a little bit weird for a second, so you can see that it cut there, and I added the appropriate amount of time to where I was able to get the camera back on. It was just a couple of seconds, and now it is in a weirdly zoomed in mode. So right after this gate, I end up stopping the camera again, and while tracking time so that I could add that back in, but you'll see that we jump here at the end of this gate. This one I think is interesting. I feel as though this gate probably could have been a lot more difficult if you put the gates at the bottom of that drop as opposed to the top, but it is interesting how it kind of still sets you up for some precarious action. Now this is a line that I actually took successfully once going up from this gate, but it is really, really tough to get going up from this gate as opposed to down. So Dustin decides against it after starting that, which is unfortunate because he definitely did kind of commit to that line. So he ends up having to take a backup there, which is I believe the first penalty that Dustin has incurred on this run. Clean run through the bonus gate. Like I said, we're taking some different perspectives this time. Hopefully that gives you a good idea of what that bonus gate actually looks like. It is a tough one. It's definitely a tough one, even though both of these drivers made it look fairly easy. Coming back up through the final gate. And now we start to see 410, 411, 412, 413. And that sounds pretty familiar. A 413.03 with a -25 for D's Company, or Dustin, in his G-Speed chassis, which if we take a look at the overall final standings between these two trucks, this is interesting. We've got a 413.03 at a -25 from the G-Speed, and we've got a 413.25 with a -20 from the Low Range RC. So these two trucks, these two drivers, performed almost identically in terms of scores and times. Now, obviously, their runs were different. We saw that. But that just goes to show how close you can be with two very different rigs. I hope that you guys enjoyed watching these rigs run this course. I don't know that necessarily, as I said in the beginning, there's any sort of comparison to be had with this video in particular, but I did find it interesting to watch these two trucks and the different driving styles of the drivers run this 10-gate course. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Would you prefer one of these companies over the other, and why? Or do you have another company that you recommend for low center of gravity chassis that you're just like, these are the guys to go with, and these other guys that you're talking about, they don't know what they're talking about? So if you know that, or if you have a brand that you particularly enjoy, I would love to hear it. Leave it down in the comments down below. I appreciate you guys checking in for yet another video, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.